Hello, my name is Jeff, and I'll be demonstrating the asset risk overview today. As you know, Industrial Defender collects OT data. We normalize, we filter out the noise, whether it pertains to compliance or OT cybersecurity data. We're trying to put our customers in the position to make better decisions, right? So what I have on screen today is our overview dashboard for risk. And we've got a couple of KPI categories out of the box, right? So you'll see here we have security, event monitoring, and compliance. And some compliance things related to baseline exceptions. There's some dashboards here which relate to health and reachability. And then, of course, vulnerabilities and patch management, right? So what we're trying to do here is create some dashboards in which something actionable can be done, right? Being able to characterize risk or maybe key in the end user to do something for the compliance workflow. In this case, some exceptions that may need to be reviewed, or maybe there are some passwords on some endpoints that have not been changed for quite some time, right? And each one of these are interactable. So if I click on this, it's going to filter and display assets in question, right? And we'll notice we've got a couple assets here in which we could drill down into. We could take a look at the collected data for this, for example. And if we went to users, we could see here we've got some accounts that looks like their passwords haven't been changed in quite some time, right? So not only the administrator count, some service counts as well, right? So that's just an example of, maybe an end user being able to find some low-hanging fruit in their environment and quickly take some action on them. Another example might be something related to baselines or exceptions, right? So something that is unique to what we do in our platform is tracking the compliance workflow itself, right? So, on one hand, you may have the actual event that's coming from an asset via the logs or maybe the appliance. But what about the events which relate to the compliance workflow itself, right? So some organizations, they've got accounts for managing the change and approving the change, right? So what happens if a timeline is exceeded for some baselines that needed to be reviewed, right? Then that would appropriately create an event, which we see with baseline exceptions not reviewed, for example, right? So we can quickly drill down into this and see that, yep, we've got some assets in which they've got some exceptions that need to be reviewed, right? So a similar asset to what we were looking at earlier, and we'll notice that there are exceptions for software installed and ports and services, and looks like some firewall rules changed as well, right? So someone would either need to come in here and accept these changes, provide some context as to why, and then that gets passed on to the approval process, right? So those are some examples of some KPIs we bring to the front. As far as under the hood, if we go back over here to the asset administration screen, we clear the filters, and we take a look at this new column here, overall risk, right? So I'm going to click on this. And hopefully this will give you an idea of some of the individual elements that contributes to the risk scoring, right? So under the hood, we've got many of these risks with their own individual weights and score breakdowns across many different fields. So we have these base risk factors out of the box in which each one can be weighted and scored individually, right? And if we were to look under the hood, we would go to settings and then risk. And then for any given profile, we go to manage. And we could see those main categories I was referring to earlier with, events and compliance all the way to vulnerability and patch. And then within each subcategory, we've got our own weighing and scoring criteria, right? For something like vulnerabilities, if we looked into CVSS scoring, right? So we could weigh CVSS score 7 and below differently from, say, 8 and above, right? In terms of its threshold and its weight. Now, in addition to this, we've added some new features with our end users being able to define their own risk criteria, right? And these can be based off of specific event fields, or they could be some administrative properties or metadata which relate to, say, criticality or Purdue level or any sort of location factor, right? So it's really up to the end user in terms of what they choose. In this case, we want to create a risk for high criticality devices, right? So pattern match high, or maybe you could create a separate one for medium, and you could weight that accordingly and include the assets in question, right? It could be something like Purdue model level, right? So maybe you're considering, Purdue level 2 and below or 1 and below, the highest of criticality, right? And then we're adding our assets in there accordingly. So this gives you the ability to say, weight the PLC that's in the critical process much higher than, say, the PLC running the vending machine. That's going to trickle on up to the dashboard and the asset overview when we take a look at the overall picture for your environment, right? So these are some of the tools we've added to help you build up these dashboards and again, bring the information that is actionable to the forefront.